We have this romanticized image of human history. We think that thousands of years ago, a brave human hopped on a wild horse, and the horse just accepted its new best friend. But the truth is far more calculated. Horses didn't choose to let us ride them. They didn't form some magical, spiritual bond with early humans. Think about it logically. A horse is a prey animal. It is biologically hardwired to run away from predators. Its eyes are situated on the sides of its head to detect movement from any direction. Its primary defense mechanism is blinding speed. And humans are predators. Our eyes face forward. We smell like meat eaters. We move like hunters. So how did a predator convince a 1,000-pound prey animal to let it sit on its back? We didn't ask for permission. We tricked them. And the way we did it is actually one of the most manipulative psychological hacks in human history. Before we get into the exact trick that broke the wild horse, let me know in the comments below. Do you think humans could ever domesticate a completely new species today? Or is that era over? Tell me what you think. Let's talk about the Botai people. Around 5,000 years ago, on the windswept plains of northern Kazakhstan, the Botai were the first to look at a horse and think about absolute control. But they didn't start by riding. They started by feeding. Wild horses in the Eurasian steppes had a brutal winter. The snow was incredibly deep. The temperatures plunged far below freezing. Food was scarce, and humans had figured out how to store food. The first trick was simple bribery. Humans started leaving fodder out during the harshest winters. To a prey animal, a human is a terrifying prospect. But starving to death in a blizzard is worse. So, generation by generation, the horses that were slightly less terrified of humans survived. The ones that ran away froze and starved. Archaeologists have actually found traces of mare's milk on the pottery of the Botai people. This proves that long before we ever put a saddle on a horse, we were already milking them. We were keeping them close. We were making them dependent on our stockpiles of winter food. We didn't tame them by breaking their spirit right away. We tamed them by exploiting their hunger. And once they were close enough, the real psychological manipulation began. Because getting a horse to eat from your hand is one thing. Getting a horse to let a predator jump onto its blind spot, its back, is a completely different level of control. In the wild, if a predator is on a horse's back, that horse is seconds away from death. A lion or a wolf leaps onto the back to bring the animal down. So a human sitting on a horse's back triggers the ultimate panic response. This is where human ingenuity got truly dark. A horse has a very specific hierarchy in the wild. There is a lead mare. She directs the herd. When she moves, they move. When she stops, they stop. She dictates where they find water, where they graze, and when they flee. Early humans realized something crucial. They didn't need to tame the whole herd. They just needed to tame the leader. Or better yet, they needed to become the leader. But how does a tiny, two-legged ape convince a massive beast that it's the boss? Through relentless, calculated pressure. We call it breaking a horse. And the term is incredibly accurate. Early humans would drive a wild horse to the point of utter exhaustion. They wouldn't kill it. They would just never let it rest. They would chase it. They would keep it awake. They would deny it peace. They would use ropes and enclosures to limit its movement. Whenever the horse tried to resist, it met pressure. Whenever it surrendered, the pressure stopped. They repeated this until the horse's fight-or-flight response simply short-circuited. At that exact moment, when the horse was too exhausted to fight, the human would offer relief. Food, water, rest, safety. It is classic psychological conditioning. Create the trauma, and then become the savior. By controlling the horse's movement and providing for its basic needs, the human replaced the lead mare in the horse's psychological hierarchy. The human became the source of safety. If this psychological tactic fascinates you or terrifies you, drop a like on this video. It really helps the algorithm know you're enjoying the deep dive. But exhaustion and psychological submission alone were not enough to ride them into war. Because a rested horse, full of energy and fear, will still throw a human off its back if it gets spooked. A prey animal's instinct to bolt will always override its learned submission if the threat feels real enough. To achieve true, mechanical control, humans had to invent a device so simple, yet so devious, it changed the course of empires. The bit. Horses have a highly sensitive mouth. But by a freak accident of evolutionary biology, there is a natural gap between a horse's front teeth and its back molars. This space is called the bars of the mouth. It is an empty space where no teeth grow, a space perfectly sized for a piece of bone, or leather, or metal. Humans discovered this gap, and they exploited it. By placing a bit in that exact sensitive gap and connecting it to reins, humans hijacked the horse's steering system. The bars of the mouth are lined with incredibly sensitive nerve endings. It wasn't about trust. It was about the threat of pain. Pull the left rein, and the metal digs into the sensitive gum on the left side. The horse moves its head left to escape the pressure. Pull the right rein, and it moves right. Pull back on both reins, and the pressure forces the horse to stop. We literally installed a steering wheel inside a living creature's mouth. We bypassed their psychology entirely and went straight for mechanical leverage. And once we had the steering wheel, history accelerated. The speed of human communication and conquest multiplied overnight. Suddenly, humans weren't just walking apes anymore. We were centaurs. We could cross continents in weeks instead of years. Think about the impact this had on warfare. Before the horse, battles were fought on foot. Armies moved at a walking pace. With the domesticated horse, humans invented the chariot. Then, they invented cavalry. The Mongol Empire, the largest contiguous land empire in human history, was built entirely on the backs of tricked horses. Genghis Khan's armies could travel up to 100 miles in a single day. They overwhelmed sedentary civilizations with sheer speed and mobility. The conquests of Alexander the Great were impossible without his cavalry. The European colonization of the Americas was drastically accelerated by the reintroduction of the horse to the continent. But the tricking didn't stop at the bit, because wild horses were actually pretty small. If you look at the original wild horses, like the Przewalski's horse or the extinct tarpan, they look more like stocky ponies. They had thick necks, short legs, and a heavy build. They weren't the majestic, towering stallions you see in modern movies. We wanted bigger machines. We wanted faster machines. So we engineered them. Over centuries, humans played God with the horse's genetic code. We selected the tallest, fastest, most compliant horses and bred them together. We prevented the weaker, smaller horses from reproducing. We mutated their genetics to suit our highly specific needs. We bred massive war horses, the ancestors of today's draft breeds, specifically to carry heavy knights in full steel armor. We bred the Arabian horse in the harsh deserts of the Middle East, selecting for incredible endurance and lung capacity so they could survive long treks across the sand. We bred the thoroughbred for explosive, short-burst speed on the racetrack. We bred draft horses like the Clydesdale and the Shire to pull incredibly heavy plows through dense, clay-heavy soil, transforming human agriculture forever. We literally reshaped their DNA to make them the perfect biological vehicles. And in doing so, we created a bizarre, evolutionary paradox. Today, there are roughly 60 million horses on Earth. They live on every continent except Antarctica. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, that makes them a massive biological success. They survived and multiplied while countless other large mammals, like the mammoth and the woolly rhino, went completely extinct. But at what cost? They survived only because they became entirely dependent on the predator that tricked them. We bred them to be so specialized that we accidentally bred away their natural resilience. If you release a modern, highly bred thoroughbred into the wild today, it will struggle to survive. Its hooves are so delicate that they require regular trimming and iron shoes applied by a human farrier. Its digestive system is so sensitive that a sudden change in diet can cause colic, a condition that is frequently fatal without human veterinary intervention. Its coat has been bred to be sleek and shiny, meaning it isn't thick enough to survive the severe winters that its ancestors once endured on the steppes. We even bred their manes to be long and flowing for our aesthetic pleasure, something that would easily get tangled in wild brush. We didn't just trick them into letting us ride them. We tricked them out of their own independence. We stripped away their ability to survive without us. What do you think about that? Was the domestication of the horse a beautiful partnership that elevated both species, or was it the ultimate biological heist? I really want to read your thoughts, so let's debate this down in the comments. The reality is, human civilization as we know it was built on a lie. Our cities, our empires, our global connections, they all stem from a deception. A lie whispered to a starving animal on the freezing steppes of Kazakhstan thousands of years ago. We told them, trust us. We have food. And the moment they did, we put a piece of metal in their mouths, climbed onto their backs, and rode them into a million different wars. If you found this deep dive into the hidden history of humanity mind-blowing, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. We uncover the uncomfortable truths behind the world we live in every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Because the horse wasn't the only animal we manipulated. We did the exact same thing to wolves, turning fierce pack hunters into lapdogs. But the trick we used on them was even darker. But that is a story for another video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.